Hello guys, my name is Sergey. I'm a freediving instructor trainer, and today I want to share my opinion about the classical CO2 table. Is it useful or is it useless way of training for beginner and intermediate freedivers specifically? If you don't know what is the CO2 table, it is a series of breath holds. This is why we call it table. With the same breath hold time. Usually it is a 50% from your maximum, and then recovery time is progressively getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So for example, if your breath hold is a 3 minute, then the breath hold for this table is going to be 1 minute 30 seconds, and the recovery time, let's say, start from 2 minutes between first and second, and then recovery time is going to be 1:45, 1:30, 1:15, etc, etc. So there is many ways how you can modify CO2 table, classical CO2 table. I did the video about this modification a few years ago. The link is going to be description, and I'm also going to put the link. I'm going to put the cards somewhere on top of the screen. But today let's stick to the classical CO2 table. So first of all, when we are talking about any breath hold, it's not like a one action. I mean, it can be one action, but you can actually separate it into four different parts. So let's say any breath hold starts with a relaxation breathing. Then after relaxation breathing is over, you do final big breath in. You still try to be relaxed, and then you holding your breath until you have an urge to breathe, until your respiratory muscles gonna contract in an attempt to make a gastric change in your lungs. And then after that you have a part number 3, when you have a breath hold, and then you have some contractions and you still try to be relaxed. And then when your breath hold is over, then you do recovery. So it is a 4 parts: relaxation breathing, breath hold until the urge to breathe, breath hold with the urge to breathe, and the recovery part. And now let's come back to the CO2, to the classical CO2 table, and let's see what we have here. Let's say your breath hold maximum 2 minutes, and you want to do CO2 table, classical CO2 table, with a breath hold 1 minute each time, like about 7 or 8 times usually. With the relaxation breathing starts from 2 minutes and getting smaller and smaller. Usually people finish with a 30 seconds relaxation breathing, or even 15 seconds. So let's say first breath hold is going to be pretty easy. So what you're practicing on the first breath hold, you're practicing how to do relaxation breathing. For a couple of minutes you do slow relaxation breathing, try to relax as much as possible. Then you do a final big breath in, still try to be relaxed and holding your breath. And now it's going to be second part, like for 1 minute, and you are trying to be as much relaxed as possible in this part. More likely you're not going to have a contractions on attempt number 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe 5. And this is totally fine, because you're practicing mainly how to be relaxed in a short period of time, how to stay relaxed, how not to have a contractions. And then maybe on attempt number 4 or 5 or 6 or maybe 7, you're gonna have a little uncomfortable sensation. So maybe towards the end you're not having like a distinctive contractions of your respiratory muscles, but you have some kind of uncomfortable sensation. And this is what we want to have. This is a slightly higher level of CO2, and we are trying to be as much relaxed as possible while we're having this sensation. And again, maybe on the last one or maybe on the last 2, you're gonna have a contractions for maybe 10-15 seconds, maybe for 20 seconds, depends how you choose the time. And again, what we're practicing here, we're practicing how to stay relaxed during these first few contractions, during the beginning of your urge to breathe. And then obviously each breath hold we're also practicing recovery, how to properly recover the level of oxygen. So how you can call this type of training useless if we are practicing everything what beginner and intermediate freediver need to practice? Relaxation breathing, we're practicing how to stay relaxed during the beginning of breath hold, and maybe towards the end of the table for a few last breath holds. We're also practicing how to stay relaxed when your CO2 level slightly above the normal. So obviously it is a useful exercise, and if you're a beginner or intermediate freediver, if your breath hold let's say less than 3 minutes 30 seconds, I do recommend this type of training. So when when I teach my students, it's not our main way of training, because our main way of training usually is no contraction table. It is when we hold our breath as long as possible without having any contractions. But from time to time we do a classical CO2 table as well. In this case, what we're practicing how to be relaxed during the beginning of this arch to breathe phase. Okay? So then the question is, why some like really experienced freedivers thinking that this type of training is not really useful for them? Because their goals is completely different. Because probably what they want to do, they want to have as much CO2 as possible during their training, right? So they want to expose themselves to the highest CO2 level possible. And does classical CO2 table correct choice? Probably not. Probably it's not the best way if you want to expose yourself to a like really high level of CO2. For this kind of training, we have a different tables. Let's say, for example, one breath table. I did the video about this maybe a few months ago. You can check it out. But again, it is a not beginner friendly type of training. So classical one is a good one for beginner and intermediate freediver. Advanced freedivers still practicing it. So I know a few like really high level static freedivers who do like a breath hold 6, 7, 8 minutes, and they do this classical CO2 table from time to time. So I couldn't say that, let's say, top level freedivers like in static like completely don't do this type of training. No, sometimes they do. But is it the most effective way to expose to the high level of CO2? Probably not. So coming back to the questions, is the classical CO2 table is useful for beginner freedivers and intermediate freedivers? Yes, absolutely yes. And one of the reasons is that for such freedivers, it's not actually a good idea to have an exposure to the high level of CO2. So this is not what beginner and intermediate freedivers should do on their training. So guys, the next time when someone asking you, is it classical CO2 table useful or useless, the good question is for whom. If it is a training table, if it is a training for the high level athlete, maybe it is not the best way. If it is a beginner intermediate, yes, it is a good way of training. Okay guys, this is it. It was my thoughts about classical CO2 tables. Hopefully it does make sense for you. If you don't agree, just write down me in comments what is your thoughts about this. I would love to read it. So guys, if you find this video useful, don't forget to click the like button, and I will see you next time.